here invited as the instigator for this session. First of all, I would like to introduce our three-panel who's going to discuss on humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, a shared responsibility, and session 4, disaster relief experience sharing. Okay, I'm going to share with you regarding the background of our first panel, Mr. Klaus Buchmuller. He's the head of the International Division of the Federal Agency for Technical Relief in Germany. And he has very vast experiences since he started as a volunteer in 1996. And he progressed on to start in international missions in THW in 1991. He has many international appointments in foreign mission deployments such as in Yugoslavia, Afghanistan, Thailand, India, Iraq, Sierra Leone, USA, Indonesia, and other countries. And now he is currently the head of International Division in Federal Agency for Technical Relief, Germany. Later on, he's going to introduce to us his unique organization, operational staff, and their responsibility. Okay, I'm going to share with you also on the second panel, Mr. Medi Herlianto. He's the Director of Emergency Restoration, National Disaster Management Authority in Indonesia. Interestingly, he is partly French as he read and studied his master's degree in France on water resources management. And he speaks French, yeah? Prior to his current appointment, he was the Director of Preparedness from 2012 to 2018. And he's going to share with us on the management and collaboration with military in relation to 3 big disasters in Indonesia last year. That is earthquake in Lombok, earthquake that becomes a tsunami and liquefaction in Palu, Sulawesi, and tsunami in Sunda Straits. And our third panel, Mr. Edgar L Posadas from Philippines. Yeah, he's the Director of the Rehabilitation and Recovery Management Service at the Office of Civil Defense. And he oversees the management of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management, as well as post-disaster evaluation and management of rehabilitation projects. His responsibility is to ensure disaster-affected communities are restored to their normal function and activities. He was also the Regional Director of the OCD Regional Office in Eastern Visayas. And he is going to share with regards to the function and responsibilities of the Office of Civil Defense and the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council in the Philippines. And also, he's going to share with us the HADR template in the Philippines, going beyond response on the road to resilience. Okay, you are given 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes to present on your experience. So we would like to invite the first one, Mr. Klaus, who's going to introduce his very unique organization, the operational staff, and their responsibilities. Thank
you. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. As Instigator said, a unique organization, THW, the German Federal Agency for Technical Relief, which I'm with about 30 years already, is a government organization working with volunteers, this is the unique part of it. Because it's an organization founded in 1950 by federal law under the Ministry of Interior. 80,000 volunteers is our operational staff in Germany, and 1,300 to 1,600 is the newest figure, full-time staff like me. The mandate is to support the local and national disaster relief, because in Germany we have federal states, so we have the lenders or the states. They are responsible for the disasters on their level. Only if it comes to a bigger disaster, the federal agency of Germany can be operational, but also the day-to-day business they call us, which is very important for us because we need to be training our staff, need to be training, so it's day-to-day business as well. And we are the only governmental organization which can operate by law on the civilian side. So in our THW law was mentioned that we are on behalf of the German government and by order of the German government we are allowed to work in foreign operations. And this is the focus of my presentation, that I want to go into the international corporations, international operations. We have operational contracts and cooperation contracts with the United Nations, different organizations like with the colleague of WFP, with UNHCR, with INSARAG, yesterday already named INSARAG, International Search and Rescue Advisory Group, with UNICEF, and as well as UNDP for the Department of Peace Operations. We have memorandum of understanding with the European Union, with ECHO, which is the European Commission Humanitarian Office, and with all these humanitarian assistance and civil protection network. Of course, we do have bilateral agreements with different countries around Germany, but also outside of this part. And we have national cooperation with our federal police, with the federal, with the German army, of course. There are binding documents where we already designed and made clear how we work together. As yesterday the gentleman from AHA presented the modular concept they do have, we as well do have a modular concept for the international stuff, for the international operations, mainly focusing on water purification, logistics support, urban search and rescue, logistics center we do have as a support, ICT admin, it means the computer system, CPR detection, just support. This is done by a German specialized fire brigade. If they go abroad, we will do the management for them. We have cooperation with the German water rescue. This we call flood rescue response as a module in the European Union context, which I will refer later on to. And we do a lot of capacity building in the last years. So countries like Iraq, Jordan, Tunisia requested us to duplicate and adapt the system of the voluntary civil defense and civil protection system to these countries. So we are not only going to support them in their new law of civil defense and civil protection, but also in operational training, structural training, and instructions how they can manage with the government, but at the same time having volunteers with the operational force, which is more and more coming to an importance for these countries. Getting more and more requests like from Georgia, from Colombia. They want to see the system of DHL because it's of course it's something to do with money, because you save money if you just have volunteers, of course. But it's also a matter of the citizens, how they feel responsible for their own country, how they can respond. And in Germany we have made the study that more and more Germans want to support when there was a disaster, but not going for trainings before. And this is a contradictory thing, because we need trained staff after any kind of disaster. So what we try, and this happens in other countries as well, what we try is to give trainings more and more to the public, and not only to THW members, but of course the best is for us if the public comes to the organization and get a really structured training. Our volunteers are completely trained volunteers, so if we set the mission, either national or either international, you can be sure they have the right training and they know what to do. For the stuff we sent outside of Germany on request of a host country after a disaster, or to support them in preparation or prevention, we do have a database. Out of these 80,000 volunteers, about 1,500 to 2,000 persons are in this database, where we exactly know what kind of capacity and what kind of capability these people have. And they are already vaccinated for every kind of medical problems. Every second year they have to go on a big medical survey, and they need to go on trainings frequently. And most of them, more than 90%, 95 or more than 98% is volunteers as well. By law, when we call them for mission, the employer has to release these persons, and the German government is paying back the employer the loss of the salary. We standardized about 100 profiles where they can apply for, where they can bid for, and say, okay, we want to be, I'm an engineer, I want to be in your team. They have to have the national training anyway, but then they say, okay, I want to be in the foreign deployment team. I have this capacity, I have this capability. Then they go on an assessment, and they have to be going on a training, and that they are on a team. They must be 20 years old, at least. They must be a national trained PhD member. They must pass the examinations as already said, the vaccination. And they need the deployment basic course and then specialized courses for logistics, for administration, for ICT, and so on. And the big advantage using volunteers is they come from different employers, they have different professions, and I can really use them how I need them. So if I need for 4 weeks an ICT guy in Colombia, I can send it for 4 weeks. I don't have to make a contract for half a year, and then it's 5 months not used for it. So I just go in a mission, and I'm very flexible with this system, which is acknowledged by especially peacekeeping operations and with UNHCR and WFP support. The first time these big organizations, because they don't know about this voluntary system, they were kind of saying, oh, this is a problem because they come in, they don't have experience, but they will face very soon. First time people do have work experience because they go frequently in these missions. They have good training, and they go right to the point and go back if needed. Equipment. To be fast and effective, you need also the equipment, and not only the logistical service. Just to introduce you to the speed. If our government gives us the alarm, we are forced, or we are at the room within 8 hours. We have to be ready to deploy from any airport in Germany, including equipment, including staff. It's quite a short time, and most of the time we will really need it. We have a centralized warehouse close to the Frankfurt airport, because it's the airport we use mostly, which is already secured. We do our own security checking. We can load our equipment directly to the airport. It's allowed by the German ministry taking care for the air security. As well, the custom tiers to start with. We have the generic equipment in this warehouse, like cans and toilets and water, but we have also the specialized equipment like water purification, water laboratory, modular, and everything is already packed for going in the mission. Just some examples for deployments. On the left is the last recent one in Mozambique, where we, after this heavy rain and the storm, we did water purification, water laboratory, we repaired some schools, but it was just beside. But the most thing we did is cleaning of wells, because they were flooded. So we cleaned these wells, spilled them many times, repaired them, made the surrounding with concrete, and so they can use it. The right picture on the side is the president of Colombia, which is saying thank you to us, because there was the UN mission of the FARC rebel taking over the weapons from the FARC rebels to the government, and the UN supported them. What we did is the ICT component, so we made the radios equipment, we did the computers within a very short time, and on the end, the FARC, the UN, and the Colombian government asked us to destroy the weapons with our volunteers when we did that in 2017, for example. The left with the blue generators, this was a mission in Indonesia. We just had a request from Indonesia. We were sending some equipment. And on the middle side, the middle picture is, I think this was Nepal. So this is what we call a short-term mission, and we do have projects as well, as I elaborated a little bit with transferring the knowledge of PHW to countries like Jordan, Tunisia, Iraq, and building up a system which is more or less the same Like we do have, of course, adapted to the country's profile, adapted to the country's cultural background. And we do a lot of projects together with member states of the European Union. In the moment, one of our newest projects is so-called TAF. It's tackling flash floods. We write together with member states, with 28 member states and some partner states of the European Union, handbook and SOPs for all civil defense around us, and of course published when we finish the project to the whole world, how to prepare and how to react to flash floods, best practice, and from operational stuff for the operational stuff, and for planning stuff, for the planning stuff in other countries dealing with this system. I'm finishing in a minute. I will be also speaking in session number 5, and there I will elaborate about the Union Civil Protection Mechanism, UCPM, which is very close to what we heard yesterday about AHA. The difference is, what also was made by Amin, is the experience, let's say 20 years, is already existing, but we have not only an agreement between the member states how we can be activated, how other countries can call the European Union and the member states for support, but also how we do trainings together, how we do exercises together, and how we do projects together, what kind of benefits. And Amin yesterday named, if you work for a peacekeeping operation, you will get some reimbursement for your stuff. If you work for humanitarian aid, you have to pay your own mission. This is the difference, I think, the biggest difference between AHA and the Union Civil Protection Mechanism, that we're going to have benefits of it, because the budget, the European Union has a budget, and this budget pays off 80% or 75% of the transportation costs if there is a mission requested from a third country through this mechanism, that the European Union is paying transportation costs. It's paying some kind of the trainings, all trainings we do together, the common trainings with the member states, paid by the European Union completely. There are consortia which are dealing with it, but it's paid by the European Union. But I will go into detail more on my next session later on. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you in the next session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Klaus Buchmuller, in introducing this unique organization. There's very good time management. Thank you. Okay, we would like to welcome or introduce our second speaker panel, Mr. Medi Herlianto. Yeah, is going to share with us on the management and collaboration with military in relation to three disasters in Indonesia last year.
Terima kasih, Ibu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, the next 10 or 15 minutes, I would like to share our experience, how to handle the disaster management, especially the disaster relief. First of all, I would like to say thank for Malaysia Institute of Defense and Security for having the BNPB Indonesia in this MIDAS conference. Okay. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that I would like to share our experience when there are three big disasters, major disasters happened last year. A big earthquake in Lombok, they struck six districts and one city, the capital of West Nusa Tenggara, popular Lombok. And and in Palu, Central Sulawesi, not only earthquake, but also tsunami and liquefaction. This is a new kind of disaster, liquefaction. And another one is Sunda Strait. I think that you know that Sunda Strait located between Sumatra and Java Island. There is the volcano, active volcano there, called the child of Krakatau. This is the silent tsunami because generated by the parts of volcano landslide, and then generate the massive wave hit two provinces, Banten and Lampung. And you know that last year's around 2,500 incidents, such as the flood, earthquake, tsunami, and fires also in Indonesia. Then you see that. Okay, next slide. You know that around 5,000 people died, missing died. You know that this can say that 50% of missing people due to the disaster globally, 50% last year. Then mostly in missing death in Palu, around 2,000 people. And you know that this is the earthquake measurement 2017. Yes, Indonesia located in 3 active places: Australia, Eurasia, and Pacific. And we have 127 volcanoes. Right now around 9 volcanoes in our red alert, like Sinabung and others. And you know that there is a subduction west side of Sumatra, south side of Java, and some area in west and east Indonesia, in Palu, and some, especially in south side of Java, there are some megatrusts. There are potential big earthquake, more than 8 Richter scale. We call it megatrust. And last 2010, we found seismic fault active in Indonesia, just around a seismic active fault. And then you know that our National Center for Earthquake Studies last 2017 found around 295 seismic active around Indonesia. Be in seismic tectonic seismic active in Sumatra, from Aceh to Lampung, and then we found that right now more seismic active in Java. Java is one of the, you can say more 60% of population of Indonesia inhabited here. This is dangerous, and yes, it should be prepared, of course. And another, you know, that last year in Lombok, according to the BMKGs of geology, meteorology, geophysics agencies, say that around 12,000 of earthquake happened there. And then now in Lombok, there is still a potential earthquake there. around 8.5 Richter scale. And yes, as you can see that in the south side of Java, there are Mertuas in Selat Sunda, and Banten province, and the others is Java, and other is Sumba. More, I think that the potential around 8.5, 8.7. Yes, this is again, the trip is permanent. That we should manage permanent. This is not, we cannot that we may say that this is not disaster management, rather than hazard, and I think that there is no natural disasters, but I think there's hazards, disaster, I think. Okay. Yes, I would like to show you this, tell you a little bit about our system, our emergency system. Last year we have already prepared that one framework, national disaster response framework. And this is our, what we call that, this is a guiding document for everyone who wants to join, and they provide guiding when the international and regional want to support Indonesia in emergency response. This is a guided document, include the military. The base of this framework, right now we prepare some SOP mechanism in national level, local government. Okay, I would like to say that I would tell you that in our system, Indonesia disaster management system, our law on disaster management, number 24, 2007, that 2008 we established National Disaster Management Office and located in Jakarta. But now that we have already established around 480 local disaster management office in provincial level and district level and city level. Why we established this institution? Because that in our law, our system, that the first responsible in disaster management is local government. Binti cannot direct order or local government, because that this institution, local disaster management office in provincial level and in the district level or city level, fully under the managed by the governor and Bupati and mayor. Yeah, I can say that except. Okay, I would like to say to show you that the system. Okay, talking about the military, the role of military in Indonesia, that you know that military is played a very important role in disaster management. I mentioned about that our system said that the first responsibility is local government. Military has the capacity, he has the discipline, yeah, and then he has big resources, and then you know, in our system in provincial level, military, we have the what we call the kodam in bahasa in Indonesia, but I think in military area command in provincial level, and in district level we call the military district level and military sub-district level. That was quite And you know that in our law, in our law, disaster management 24/2007, civil in disaster management, military support. In our military law, number 34/2004, there are two main role of military. First, for war, and other than war. Other than war include disaster management. So when disaster happen in one area, in provinces, on district level, and military no need to request them. They come and support local government, different. And then civil still, of course, lead. It means the local government lead, and military, even the district, district level or sub-district level support. And even you know that military we have in low level, the village level, we have the military in village level. We call it Babinsa. Babinsa is can say the non-commissioned official in village level. They support local government in village level in development in general. Of course, they play their role also in disaster management. That's why I say that military plays an important role in disaster management. Okay. I would like to say that also based on our experience in Lombok, in Palu, and Sunda Strait, our president, Republic of Indonesia, changed that the head of BNPB. We replaced the new head of BNPB based on our experience on this. You know that BNPB cannot be led by the military active military. Then last February, the president changed the new head of the BNPB. He is still military active, 3 stars, Lieutenant General Medi Herlianto. Now BNPB led by the military. And you know that Lieutenant General Medi Herlianto focus in environment. Then you know that he is quite popular with the quote that we take care of nature will take care of us. Is that right now in some area right now because the BNPB limited resources, especially human resources, and right now that some rank military colonel we put in Lombok, in Palu, in Sunda Strait and others affected area. Okay, then I would like to set special. This is our system special in the major disasters. But this is based on our national disaster framework. The system, you can say that if something happen, big disaster happen, we use this system. But until now, the only one you can say the status national disasters. National disaster only in Aceh 2004. Until now, can say just local disasters. Even in Nusa Tenggara, NTB, Lombok, in Palu, even the big disaster there, still we declare still local disaster and Sunda Strait local disasters. And we hope no national disaster. If something happens, maybe big disaster happen there, we use this system. The system that NRCC, national response coordination centers. All the, like the MOFA Army headquarters and other agencies in national level play their role, and in one in RCC. In provincial level, we use the area command that you can see the MAF centers, multi-agency coordination centers. Here we put the HAHA center, we put the Medi Herlianto system, JOCA system, and national NGO, international, I think here, the cluster system also will be here in the MAF center. And of course the military, even in foreign military also we coordinate here. This MAF center coordinated by Deputy of Emergency Response in BPB. And in district level, even in city district level, we established the incident command. Yeah. For example, in Lombok, and I would like to explain with Lombok, for example. Oh yes, it is Lombok, August 2018. This is the first what we call you see the structures of it. Yes, the role of military in this case. This is a little bit what we call when the disaster happened there, 2018, August 2018, and local government established the organization, incident command system, and led by the military, led by the commander, the area commander, and Korem can say the military resource commander. At the time in the one stars. Then 1 month after, and you know that in Lombok, I think that more than 500 people died, and then can say that more than 50,000 housing damage, more than that. And then some infrastructure, of course. And then 1 month after, and then his position, the incident commander, led by the military resource commander, 1 star, replaced with 2 stars. 2-star military active, of course. He was the special army force in Malaysia. 2-star, in general. You can see that it's a MAF. And we established the new organization, how to handling the emergency response in West Nusa Tenggara and TPO Lombok. And at the time, there are 6 districts and 1 city, and our organization, of course, like the incident command, IGS, incident command system, we build planning section led by the military and civil combination, and operation also led by military and civil, and logistics and others. And under the structures of organization of operation, we established seven subsector combination between military and civilian. And yes, this is we have the what we call the Kogas-Garpan. Kogas-Garpan is a military system in disaster management. We call the integrated military task force command, Kogas-Garpan. I will just show you. So yes, this is the MAF centers. In Bahasa, in Indonesia language we say that post penas, and Kogas Kapat we put here in next centers. Kogas Kapat military task force. This is military system, and we put there. And under BNPB, we could we may promoting the commander, Kogas Kapat commander, to be senior commander in provincial level in area command. Okay. Yes. What we have done in Palu, almost the same. Kogas Kapat also played a role in, of course, in area command, post penas. In next center, we put Kogas Kapat integrated task force commander. Different, I think that is still 1 star military. And okay, this is Central Sulawesi. Yes, the big earthquake, 7.4 earthquake, and come from tsunami, and followed by the liquefaction. Liquefaction, I mentioned before, is the first kind of disasters. In this incident, we accept the international support, especially logistic. Maybe the our colleagues or the center, some speaker also said about that accepting the international assistance in Palu. In Balikpapan, in this Kalimantan, we the stationer because due to the situation in Palu and airport damage, they cannot accept the international assistance there. Yes, please. Yeah, I would like to show you that this is our cluster system. Cluster mechanism is very important right now. Indonesia established 8 national clusters. Maybe they are colleagues from OCHA said that 11, which one is mistaken. But Indonesia established 8 cluster system. They play their role in, once again, cluster system. We put here in next centers. If something happened, maybe incident commander in district level or city level, they need resources, and then they coordinated by the area command in provincial level, and then provincial level will communicate with the next centers. Next center, you can say representative of national level. This is system, and we put a cluster system here. Maybe that something happened, big disaster happened. And we would also OCHA, JOKA, center, and military, and then, yes, we cluster system we have right now. Last 2 weeks, this is the picture Monday to August. We discussed, we will change a little bit about disaster cluster system.
Sorry, Mr. Medi.
Yes.
We have run out of time.
Okay.
I give you another 5 minutes so that you can wrap it up.
Yes. Okay, this is class system. 1 hour cluster, 1 hour system. We put in the next centers. Okay, this is the last slide. We have the 3 recommendations for our region, especially in emergency disasters. Once again, strengthen preparedness. Preparedness is very important. The problem now, I think, the preparedness. I think that what a preparedness activity like early warning is very important. I said that in Haslinda, when disaster, we can say that silent tsunami. Silent tsunami, there is no warning, there is no information to the people. So I think if we want to effectively in the emergency response, I think that start from preparedness. Preparedness like that, warning, early warning, make the people understand, make the people they know how to protect themselves, evacuate and something like that. Exercise, also important. Real exercise, simulation, and then also communication information, very important. So we prepare in preparedness activity, and then once again that strengthen the military force as a backbone, especially in Malaysia right now, will be led by the military active. Right now, we collaborate with the military. Yes, of course, our collaboration should be enhanced. You know that right now, fires happen in 6 provinces. Right now, we deploy 6 military troops in 6 provinces. Our program changed now number suppression, but I think that prevention is very important. So we deploy military now together, of course, with the others institution. We deploy each province 1,000 military. Their main job is advise the people, change their mindset, not burn the land, but I think they should care of the land. I think that is the environmental aspect. Okay, and that's the one. So in my partnership, so important that I think is here not only military, we also right now that strengthen our capacity, local together, working together with the private sector. But private sector is a big resources, so I think that right now we still build a collaboration with the private sector, of course, NGO, community group. Okay, that's all that I can share with you. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
That was an interesting presentation, sharing info about the knowledge sharing with us. I know, we sort of cut short your time, but I'm sure the ladies and gentlemen, if you would want to know more about what he has shared with us, you can communicate or talk with him directly after the session. And at the same time, I think it would be good if you could share with us your slides, so that we can understand. I'm interested in some of the framework that you shared with us just now on the Indonesian disaster framework. So if you can share with us the slides later on, so hopefully if we see the slide, it will become more clear with us. Okay, I'm going to invite the next speaker, Mr. Edgar L Posadas. Is going to share with us with regards to the function and responsibilities of the Office of Civil Defense and the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council in the Philippines, as well as the pamphlets in the Philippines going beyond response on the road to resilience.
Thank you very much, Madam Instigator. To my fellow panelists, Excellencies, Vice Admiral Nabarat Bang, fellow HADR practitioners, disaster managers, fellow public servants, ladies and gentlemen, salam, mabuhay, magandang umaga, and a very good morning to all. In the interest of time, I would just go through my notes because I don't want to bore you so much with some of the slides that I will be showing. And on behalf of the onset, on behalf of the Secretary of National Defense, I'd like to thank the Ministry of Defense for inviting us here, for MiDAS and CAS for allowing us to share our Philippine experience on HADR. So the first few slides are generally leveling off slides. So through the years, the Philippines has experienced numerous disasters and catastrophes. In fact, we are third in the world at risk to disasters, based on the World Risk Index report in 2018. So where there is Indonesia, we come following them. In a country that has been through a lot in terms of disasters, we still think that managing disasters is never an easy task. In fact, it is more challenging now than ever before. Allow me to present to you the things that we have experienced and learned so far and how we are able to move forward beyond response. So, as you may already know, and you are already aware, we experienced many disasters in the Philippines, primarily because of our geography in the Pacific Ring of Fire and the Circum-Pacific Belt. This is where, of course, the Philippine Sea and the Eurasian tectonic plates meet, and this makes us prone to earthquakes. We have 20 each day, and we have 300 volcanoes, 24 of which are very active and sometimes very destructive. The Philippines is also located along the Pacific Typhoon Belt and the East Asian monsoon, which influences the occurrences of these different weather disturbances such as typhoons and thunderstorms. We experience an average of 20 typhoons per year according to our Philippine forecasting agency, PAGASA. So in fact, the Philippines can also be called an exporter of typhoons. We have our colleague from Vietnam here. In fact, we are experiencing one which we are, I think, exporting to Vietnam soon. So shown are the tracks of tropical cyclones in the western North Pacific from 1948 to 2010, based on records of the Japan Meteorological Agency. So given the location and situation of the Philippines, it is imperative for the country to proactively look for ways to address these recurring events. The paradigm shift that is hazards focused to vulnerability paradigm influenced the crafting of the Disaster Risk Reduction and Management in the Philippines and the enactment of Republic Act 10121 in 2010. The law called for strengthening of the country's DREAM system and to provide a comprehensive DREAM framework and plan. Prior to the enactment of RA 10121, the disaster management in the country was administered by the National Disaster Coordination Council, which then was heavily anchored mainly on response actions alone. Through RA 10121, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or the NDRC, was created, replacing the then NDCC, and grants it with the overall policy making, coordination, supervision, monitoring, and evaluation functions, focusing on DRM. The Philippines is one of the first countries to have institutionalized DREAM through a legislation in a law in 2010. The law further led to the expansion of the council members to 45. So basically, this is the whole of government there. The chairperson of the NDMC is the Secretary of National Defense, or in your case, the MOD. OCD as the Secretariat is part of the Defense Department. That's why this forum is very close to my heart, as I've also worked in the defense establishment as a military doctor for 11 years. It has 4 vice chairpersons who are tasked to lead each of the 4 thematic areas in DRR. Prevention and mitigation by the Department of Science and Technology, preparedness by the Department of the Interior and Local Government, disaster response by the Department of Social Welfare and Development, and the National Economic Development Authority handling rehabilitation and recovery. With the Office of Civil Defense as the Secretary to the Council, the OCD Administrator acts as the Executive Director of the NDMC, OCD as one of the bureaus of the Defense Department, as a central office and 17 regional offices. Anything on DRM, particularly on response, pass through the whole of government process as embodied in the NDMC, as a collegial body that advises the President of the Philippines on matters pertaining to DRM. It has also members from line agencies, national government agencies, local government units, the civil society organizations, the academia, and the private sector. This just goes to show the DREAM network, which brings Dream to the grassroots, and it is the replication of the NDRIMC from the national down to the regional, the provincial, city, municipal, and barangay levels. A barangay is the smallest administrative division in the Philippines, similar to your kampong in Malaysia. The law also stipulates for the development of the NDRIM framework, which was approved in June 2011. From the original framework that provides for 4 equal shares based on the 4 thematic areas, eventually our goal is for a framework that is heavy on prevention and litigation, which we believe is key to a more effective and proactive DREAM, which will lessen reliance on the very costly response mechanism. The litmus test for the effectiveness of the RA 10121 was Super Typhoon Yolanda or Haiyan. This is familiar to most of you, as most of you have extended a hand to us during that time in 2013. Super Typhoon Yolanda was a game changer. It became the benchmark for the new normal in the country's dream. It made us rethink on the premise that if preparedness is the key, when then do we actually say that we have prepared enough? That experience changed the way we look at disaster response in the Philippines forever. It is also worth mentioning that before Super Typhoon Haiyan hit the country, there were 2 other major disasters that occurred in the same year. One was an armed conflict, a human-induced one, between the Philippine government and the Moro National Liberation Front, which resulted to a 20-day bloody siege in Zamboanga City, affecting over 118,000 people, leaving 240 people dead. Less than a month after the Zamboanga siege, a 7.2 magnitude earthquake hit Bohol in the central Philippine area, killing 227 individuals. Indeed, 2013 was a year to reckon with in terms of the sheer magnitude of disasters that besieged the country that year. And on the 8th of November 2013, Haiyan swept through a number of provinces in the central part of the Philippines. DRR experts considered this disaster event as the most powerful tropical cyclone to ever make landfall in recorded history. Shown are the series of landfalls made by the typhoon and the areas it hit. In just a day, it made not 1, but 6 landfalls as it traversed its trajectory westward on the central Philippine archipelago. And on the 9th of November 2013, it left the PAR, the Philippine Area of Responsibility, as a low-pressure area. In terms of number of deaths, Super Typhoon Yolanda has caused the most number of deaths in the country. Over 16 million persons were affected across several regions in the country. The NDRIMC consolidated the impact reports, and up to today, we still have 1,062 individuals missing and unaccounted for. More than 1 million houses were destroyed, either partially or totally damaged by the super typhoon. The total cost of damages reached up to almost 90 billion pesos. To get the US dollar equivalent, you have to divide this by 50, while the losses amounted to almost 43 billion per post-disaster needs assessment report conducted. Shown is an aerial snapshot of how Tacloban looked like before the typhoon and a few days after Typhoon Yolanda made landfall. Shown here is the former President Benigno Aquino III being briefed on the situation by key government officials, both local and national, after Yolanda hit. A total of 1.2 billion pesos worth of relief assistance was provided to the affected regions. Further, personnel and other military assets from national, local, and foreign agencies, responders, and volunteer organizations were pre-positioned and deployed to various strategic areas to facilitate response and medical operations. The NDRIMC, civic organizations, private institutions, the international community, and other government partners together facilitated and provided immediate response and relief to the affected population, which included the formation of a task force Yolanda and other task forces. An interagency task force on Yolanda still exists at present, with the cabinet secretary, a high-ranking cabinet official, orchestrating its efforts. What then have we learned? One of the main reasons for the loss of lives during Typhoon Yolanda was that people were not well informed of the situation and they were unaware of the potential impact of the typhoon. Although they had been warned about its arrival, many were not alarmed because they had experienced and lived through strong weather events before, these areas being in the eastern seaboard of the country facing the Pacific Ocean. The people were also warned about a possible storm surge, but they did not know what it meant, let alone understood its deadly impact. We were prepared, but we were not prepared for a Yolanda. We have learned the crucial part of giving accurate, timely, relevant, and understandable warnings to the public, and at the same time enabling the public to put the information into action. In fact, in 2014, a year after Typhoon Haiyan hit, another super typhoon called Ruby, or Hagupit, hit the country again. Learning from the importance of warnings resulting to actions, the National Green Council issued specific warnings regarding its potential impacts, such as notifications to the public on the possible occurrence of storm surges in areas where the typhoon is expected to pass. When Typhoon Hagupit exited the country, 1.4 million people were evacuated to evacuation centers, resulting in only 18 deaths despite over 3 million individuals affected. With the need for an effective early warning system in place, another law, RA 10639, an act mandating private telecommunication companies, this is private initiative, to send free mobile alerts in times of disasters, was approved and enacted in 2014. The Early Alert Warning Messages, or EAWM strategy, was further enhanced, making it focused or area focused, hazard specific, and time bound, making sure that everybody who needs to be informed will receive accurate and timely notifications from the NDRRMC. Civil-military coordination, or CIMCOR, during Typhoon Yolanda was considered one of the better examples of disaster response operation on a larger scale. As a reference for learning, coordination between the civilian and military aid workers should continue enhanced to ensure the optimal civilian use of defense assets available on the ground. The Multinational Coordination Council, or MNCC, should always be poised to process and manage potential surges of incoming foreign military assets. Clear and consistent requirements from the responders on the ground, as well as their counterparts in their respective operations center, should provide the MNCC the identified needs that the military could provide. The response operations during Typhoon Yolanda demonstrated that the optimal use of defense assets is best coordinated through the MNCC. Also, a significant improvement is the institutionalization of the pre-disaster risk assessment. PDRA is a process to evaluate a hazard's level of risk given the degree of exposure and vulnerability in a specific area. It presents the possible impacts to the population at risk from a basis to determine the appropriate level of response actions from the national level of government agencies down to the local government units. PDRA is a meeting of the key response agencies to identify what they could provide 72 hours prior to a typhoon hitting or when it enters the Philippine area of responsibility. PDRA is also hazard-specific, time-bound, and area-focused. To illustrate this and banking on the effectiveness of PDRA, a command conference which became in essence a high-level PDRA was presided by no less than President Rodrigo Roa Duterte on September 2018 to ensure that government preparations are in place for Typhoon Ompong or Mangkhut, which eventually led to the declarations of state of calamities in 4 affected regions in the island of Luzon. The private sector's assistance during Typhoon Yolanda allowed for a quicker, bigger, and more effective humanitarian response. This is also applicable for CSOs, NGOs, the academe, and faith-based organizations who were already on the ground during operations. when closely coordinated with government, the private sector multiplies a nation's surge capacity to meet the life-saving needs of the affected population. To name a few, among the more recent disasters that came our way, which had great impacts based on their severity and magnitude, were the infamous Marawi siege by ISIS-inspired extremists in the southern Philippines in 2017, where a similar IATF for Yolanda was created, called the Task Force Bangon Marawi, to address the unique needs and challenges of these human-induced events in 2017. This is locally managed by the government. Typhoon Ompong or Mangkut in September 2018, and Tropical Depression Usman in 2018 as well in December, and the back-to-back 6.1 magnitude earthquakes in Zambales in April 2019, and the 5.9 magnitude earthquake in Itbayat, Batanes, up north in July 2019. Because of our experiences in the past, we cannot say that we have successfully perfected the art, but we have responded better to these recent disasters in the country. Our response efforts for the victims of the Central Sulawesi earthquake, which happened in September 2018, was a testament to the changing and emerging role of the Philippines in the region, from a mere recipient of assistance and generosity to being an assisting state, which was initially unthinkable and unimaginable given our predicament. Our plates were full in responding to the victims of Typhoon Ompong or Mangkut at that time. But while we were still busy collecting the bodies of our dead from the deadly landslides brought about by the typhoon, says the SND, Secretary Lorenzana, in his send-off message for the first Philippine humanitarian team to the Central Sulawesi earthquake with Indonesian diplomats in attendance in Manila, we must be ready to lend a hand and respond externally. Some share because they have much or they have something to spare because they are not as vulnerable as us. But despite our proneness and predicament as the most third disaster-prone country in the world, we extend our arms, reach out, and share to a neighbor in need who was there for us when we needed help the most as well. So shown is the ASEAN member states and the Philippines' response to the relief efforts to the Central Sulawesi earthquake last year. The NRIMC spearheaded the 2 Philippine humanitarian missions to Sulawesi, Indonesia. Both missions were civilian-led and military-supported mercy missions. The Philippine mission teams traveled to Palu and Balikpapan, Indonesia, both in October 2018 to turn over the assistance to the Indonesian government through the AHA Center and Indonesia's BNPB. We have also tools and processes and mechanisms on HADR in the Philippines, from prevention and mitigation all the way to rehabilitation and response. So shown are the lists of tools, processes, and mechanisms to make our efforts more effective and efficient. So how now do we go beyond response on HADR towards our goal of resilience? One of our priorities is to sustain the community-based disaster risk reduction and management trainings. When a disaster strikes, the government's intervention takes time. Thus, people should be equipped and their capacities are developed to cope with the effects of disasters. In 2018, we were mandated by law, our General Appropriations Act of fiscal year 2018, to equip and capacitate 14 of the most vulnerable sectors of Philippine society, to include women, children, the pregnant, persons with disability, and others in DREAM, and lessen the impact of disasters on these sectors requiring special needs. Also, we do mainstreaming of DRRM climate change adaptation in all levels, from national down to the barangays. Since the Philippines employs a decentralized government framework, local government units serve as the front line in DRRM. Local Dream Management Office of each LGUs are tasked to implement disaster preparedness, prevention and mitigation, response, as well as rehabilitation and recovery programs in their own communities. This approach promotes ownership, inclusivity, community participation, and empowering them and holding them responsible and accountable in addressing their own DRM issues and challenges. Emphasis is given to build better, building back stronger, and to more resilient infrastructure. Infrastructure such as evacuation centers should be disaster-proof. Damaged structures in the Philippines are now being rebuilt or retrofitted to be able to withstand large-scale, high-impact disasters. In fact, just recently, a National Housing Authority design was approved by the NDRIMC in 2018 as the standard template for evacuation centers henceforth for the rest of the country. Risk financing, disaster risk insurance, and other forms of risk transfer strategies is also one of the programs being given importance right now in the Philippines. It is considered to be an effective tool in addressing the effects of calamities and lessen the burden on the government, especially in financing post-disaster rehabilitation and recovery programs. This will allow the government to focus more on the vital and tangible needs of the affected population. In the essence of the National Dream Framework, where prevention and mitigation is given premium, consideration has been placed on the fundamental fact that disasters disrupt and may ultimately lead to maldevelopment. It is therefore prudent to reflect on the recovery process and endeavor to transcend the rehabilitation and recovery interventions to take stock and build better forward in consideration of future disasters and its potential impacts. Conceptually, this will lead to resilient recovery by addressing current risks and managing emerging challenges towards disaster resilience. In conclusion, all disasters generally have unique attributes, but they typically generate the same type of socio-cultural, economic, and psychosocial vulnerabilities. Significant improvements in emergency preparedness and response occurred through synchronizing existing national capabilities to create new surge capacities. In the Philippines, we are continuously encouraging the cooperation and buy-in of all our stakeholders, since DRRM is not only a whole-of-government affair, but instead requires the whole-of-nation approach to be effective, successful, and relevant. We also continuously innovate and enhance our DRRM policies, plans, and programs in acknowledgement of the fact that disasters nowadays, natural and human-induced, are increasing in terms of scope, magnitude, frequency, and complexities. As a continuum based on our Philippine experience, an effective and efficient recovery and rehabilitation after a disaster is hinged on a previously successful response process. One of the highlights of the recently concluded sunset review of the law, RA 10121, is the need to upgrade OCD NDRIMC into a new department, the Department of Disaster Resilience, or DDR, which is now being deliberated in Congress and the Senate of the Philippines. Finally, while we cannot prevent hazards from occurring, disasters resulting from the effects of such could be prevented. Moving forward, we continue to strive towards our dream of a safer, adaptive, and a disaster-resilient Philippines that is geared towards sustainable development for the Filipinos in the near future. Maraming salamat po. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edgar L Posadas. Very interesting presentation on disaster in the Philippines. Just to sum it up, yeah? All three presentations has been very interesting, particularly from Germany. I like the very unique and interesting organization you had, yeah? Which is of particular interest to me myself, and I I'm sure some of us here, and also on Indonesia, on the three big disasters in Indonesia and the coordination and collaboration with the military on how they manage disaster, and finally the Philippines. Well done, ladies and gentlemen, on your very good presentation. Now, I would like to get, if there's anyone on the floor who would like to ask a question. Do you have any question from the floor? Anyone? Yes, that's what, carry on.
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. It's basically you see the comparative. NATMA presented it yesterday, AHA presented it yesterday. The only wish is now if there can be a comparative study to see which of the mechanisms. To Mr. Medi, there was one interesting slide that you showed us. Lessons not learned, failure of geo-risk governance, transfer failure. How are you addressing that in your new organization in 2019? Would you please elaborate that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good question. You know that geology is a phenomenon. We know that about the geology is that we know that ring of fire. We know that there are big initial meeting in Australia and Eurasia and Pacific plate, and we have the 27 volcanoes and we can say every day. Before the earthquake happened, in the last 5 years, around maybe every 2 days, only 5 plus. Okay, sorry. Every 2 days, only maybe only one earthquake, or about 5 kilometers scale. But now it's already be 2 or 3, and the number of earthquakes in Indonesia increased right now. Before last 5 years, around 7 earthquakes. Now become 15,000, before 7,000. Now, and this is the phenomenon. That's why that we know that long time ago, the disaster happened, earthquake, tsunami already happened in Indonesia. And we can say that disaster in NTB or Lombok, Palu, this is a geologist phenomenon. That it means that trip is permanent. So our readiness also permanent. So why it started? As the very prone countries, very prone countries, I think we prepare is very important. So our big problem now, I think that I mentioned about that. The first responsible is local government. The problem now, I think that their capacity need to be strengthened. I'll give you one point. For example, BNPB cannot direct manage or manage the local government. Local government responsible for their in this, if there is disaster management happen, they are responsible. But you know, at one point, about budget, for example. About budget. We know maybe I think at least 1% of the total budget should be allocated for disaster risk reduction. 1% at least is national. And you know that local government in Indonesia, frankly speaking, only 1.00. And I give you another example. In Sumatra, for example, a big earthquake there in West Sumatra, 2009, and before in some area like Banten, for example, West Java and Sumba or Lombok. If we trace the history, there are many kind of disasters. Many disasters already occurred there before, long time ago. This is a phenomenon. I think this is a permanent trend, so we should prepare permanently. So that's why that this is not, it's a first lesson, but not learn. And then I mentioned about our national earthquake centers already found 295 seismic active in Indonesia. 5 years ago, only 80 seismic active for. Now we have already delivered this assessment to the local government. We push the local government, please prepare, use this assessment to become their policy, their plan, integrate in their development plan. But I think you imagine that how do the local government prepare their disaster activity, preparedness activity, if they allocated only 0.0% budget in their development. That's why I said that we fail to disaster risk governance in our development. This is this point. Actually, this is a personal opinion. Yeah, we lesson but not learn. We fail to we fail to change the assessment resource to be a policy and plan. We fail to conduct the disaster risk governance. Here's the answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Medi. Yeah. Is there any question from the floor? We have one more question before we wrap it up.
I have a question. My name is Edgar L from Malaysia Agency. Question to Mr. Medi. In regards to Palu and earthquake and tsunami in Palu, which renders house in thousands of villages to the house destroyed and people lost, died, more than 2,000, or some say cannot find more than 10,000 people just gone. And we still consider that as a national disaster, not international, is it? And what is your guidelines on how we consider this international disaster? Thank you.
Can you please repeat your question again?
Excuse me, could you repeat this question?
The question is actually Palu. Okay, if you see the catastrophe was so huge. Lots of people died, lots of house damage, and still until now people live in temporary shelters. Do you still local disaster or international disaster, and how you actually give guidelines to which disaster you consider as national disaster, which that amount of difficulty with that scale of difficulty.
Okay, that's interesting questions. Okay, but that's, you know, that I mentioned about there is no national disasters except Aceh, tsunami in Aceh 2004. And then, until now, there's no disasters, national disasters. Even in Palu, even the number of missing people, dead people, and number of damage, housing damage, or infrastructures, and also the total economic loss about maybe 22 trillion rupiah. And in Lombok also, almost 500 people died. Until now, our disaster management law already gives some criteria of when we decide if something happened, you know, incident happened, this is national disasters or this is a local disasters. The first is number of missing people, number of dead people, and then the number of infrastructures losses, then the number when the local government incapable to handle these disasters. But until now, even in Palu, we accept the international assistance. This is still not national disasters. For example, it's difficult for us to decide this national or local government. For example, the number of people missing or dead. How many people? You can decide this is maybe 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and then yes. Another point that national disasters should be what we call it. National disaster, I think that need to government regulation, and we have prepared this regulation, but still debatable. Problem is number of people missing, housing damage, infrastructure in general infrastructure losses. So the important thing is in our policy. When disaster happen, the central government support. You know, for example, me myself, when the last 2 months, in Konawe Utara, one of district in Sulawesi, flooded in Idul Fitri, you know the Idul Fitri. So you have to say it. Yeah. At the time, me myself, to go there, you know that I'm a Muslim. The time I said I should celebrate my in Jakarta, and then at the time disaster happened, I know 1 week before, and my boss said that maybe Are you ready? Go to the field, effective field. Yes. One day, next in the morning, I go. This means that our policy, national policy, BNPB policy, if there's something happen in one area, in local government, BNPB come quickly support local government. When just supporting, just guiding the local government, the first responsible is still local. We support local government how to manage emergency, and then we establish system, organization, and support with logistics. This is very important. Please, and then our policy in central government. Please do not say what call it. Yes, the important thing that if something happens in local, BNPB coming soon. That's important. And
Thank you
then,
very much, Mr. Medi.
yeah. Okay, that's all thing. I think yeah.
Thank you very much. And we have.
My answers.
Are you okay? All right then. So since our time is up, yeah. Gentlemen, it has been a very interesting presentation. I'm sure all of you have got loads of questions for our panel. Even I myself have got lots of questions to instigate them, but I'm keeping them these questions to ask during coffee break so that I can instigate further. Well, you can always speak to them to get more information on what they have presented. Otherwise, what we have here is not enough. Thank you very much.